So, yeah, my name's Mike Wayne. I'm standing for Lewisham People Before Profit. It was a decision made quite late in the day. I think it's probably fair to say I'm on a steep learning curve. I'm here to find out the depth of the issues that concern you. And I probably don't have all the answers. But I agreed to stand because I thought it was important to have an alternative agenda represented at the ballot box. And I think that agenda is nicely summed up by the words of by the name of the organisation, People Before Profit. And that means, I think, putting equality and participation at the heart of what we do in politics. Unfortunately, I think the three main other parties are signed up to another agenda, an agenda that's opposite to that. I think it's really profits before people. And what that means is that we get more inequality and less genuine participation. Profits before people means turning the public expenditure budget into a giant trough, really, and inviting all the corporate snouts to come in and feed. They're sucking up the surplus, they're taking money out of the local economy. And this is one of the great tools. Public expenditure is one of the great tools we have to mitigate against the inevitable inequalities of capitalism. Instead of mitigating those problems, we are making them worse. We're creating fewer jobs. We're creating jobs at lower wages. There's less available training. And the other thing that's happening by turning the budget over to the corporate sector is that we're locking local people out of the democratic decision-making process, because all the important decisions, the corporates are there in the room, and then the decisions are sold or imposed on the public afterwards. So I think, the three main parties are really locked into that agenda, unfortunately. The Tories and the Lib Dems certainly are. Labour's a bit more of a complicated situation. I think the membership would like a return to what used to be called social democracy, but there are powerful people in the Labour Party, councillors up and down the land, the bulk of the Parliamentary Labour Party. They are happy with this corporate democracy, and I think we only have to look at the behaviour of the Parliamentary Labour Party during the tenure of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership to see that that is the case. So if we want a real alternative, we're going to have to think differently, we're going to have to behave differently, we're going to have to vote differently, and that's why I decided to stand. It's true that we've got a crisis. It's true too that national government has starved local authorities. 16 billion has been stripped out of local authority funding over the last 10 years. And it's also true that Lewisham's plan is to cut 40 million over 3 years. And that is going to really hurt. I think what I would say is that, first of all, we're not saving money by contracting out all our services. Those companies are operating for a profit. And the whole idea that, it's value for money to, contract out, it's a nonsense. We see it all the time, how the private sector rips off the public sector. And unfortunately, over the years, Lewisham Council have had a mania for contracting out. They were very keen on the PFIs that were introduced. They were expanded by the new Labour government. The Tories introduced it, the new Labour government expanded it. And Lewisham Council, went in head first. And, PFIs have been a disaster. It's also the case that, the government, the local authority, does have money in the accounts. They had 5.5 million in 2018 that was there. It's a levy for to spend on infrastructure projects when there's building going on. Schools, GPs, parklands. It wasn't being spent then. They've also got £185,000 a year CEO. They found the money to pay off the last CEO, £185,000, and he was only there for a year. Questions about that. They've got 4 executives on over £150,000 a year. I mean, that's the Prime Minister kind of level. He earns a little bit more. So I think, when they want to find money, they can find money. So they're always pleading poverty. And yes, it is true, of course, that it is, the money is tight. But I think where there's a will, there's a way. And I guess basically, what I would say is squeeze the property developers. Squeeze them. They want to build on land. Squeeze them. Rinse them. Get more money out of them. They can afford it. Councils are notoriously soft when it comes to dealing with the property developers. They let them get away with anything. That's in a short term, it's not a long-term solution. In the short term, squeeze the rich and the powerful. Yeah, so it was Ella. She was 9 years old, lived in Lewisham. She died from dangerous emissions living on a busy road. Those emissions exceeded national and EU limits, and they're above WHO guidelines. And I think the council's crazy deregulated house building programme is only going to make traffic congestion and traffic pollution worse. We haven't had a question specifically on housing yet, but of course we do need houses built, but we need houses built for low income people. And what the housing programme really is geared for is bringing in people who don't actually live in Lewisham now, but want to buy into Lewisham, and they're going to be buying, they're going to be middle and higher income families. So most of the housing programme is going to increase car traffic. It's not going to address the needs of all those people who are on the housing register and in temporary accommodation. And where are the impact assessments going on with the house building programme in terms of traffic congestion and pollution? You've got schools on busy high streets. All those traffic fumes are going into the lives of young people, and they are, as we've seen with Ella, the most at risk. So I think we need a real impact assessment on what the house building programme is doing in terms of traffic pollution, traffic congestion. And I think we need more monitoring. The council needs to be monitoring the air level regularly and across the borough, so we can get some more accurate estimates. I mean, there are a range of things which people have spoken about. We know kind of what the sort of some of the smaller solutions are. We need to encourage more car sharing with car parking clubs, for example. We need more cycle lanes, electric vehicle charging, tree planting, all the things that people have already said. We know that. I think the big contradiction here is the house building programme and how that is going to just bring more and more people into Lewisham. Most of them are not already here, more and more cars. And already, a lot of the roads in Sydenham are gridlocked at various points during the day. And, there's all this pollution going into the air. I think it's clear that nationally we're going to have Tory austerity Mark II coming. I think it's really important to remember that Britain is a wealthy country. Yeah, it is a wealthy country. The problem is that the wealth is very unequally distributed. So in order to come out of COVID in a way that is not a disaster, we're going to have to try to find ways of redistributing wealth. That's the key. It's all very well to talk about the big society and to talk about, the efforts of voluntary efforts. Of course, these are important and they're motivated by the best of desires, but we have to look at the bigger picture. How do we redistribute wealth? I think if there's one small idea that Lewisham Council could do is set up a bank. That's been a policy of Lewisham People for Profit. Sorry, someone's kind of cut.
Sorry, I've just muted them.
So I think, set up a community bank, borrow the money from the municipal bond agency. You could even, perhaps at the moment, borrow it from the private sector. The interest rates are at rock bottom right now. And you would offer, the community bank would offer loans, not for a profit, to help, for example, small businesses which struggle to get loans from high street banks, and they're struggling, of course, because of COVID. A community bank could also be vital to make loans to low-income people trapped in debt. I mean, trapped in cycles of debt where they're borrowing to pay off debt and they're borrowing at ever higher rates of interest. So a community bank could help break that cycle. But I think, let's again think, debt is really all that the current system can offer many people right now. Debt to cover low wages, debt to pay for services like education. We do need alternatives. We need obviously at a national and even international level, but at a local level, that's one small suggestion, a community bank. Yeah, I think we need councillors who are going to be allies of Lewisham citizens when they, when they challenge unpopular council decisions. And I think one of the flashpoints of those unpopular decisions over the years and going forward are the council's housing policies, where there is a lack of consultation with people. I'm surprised we hadn't had a housing question, but there you go. I think you need a councillor with a different political agenda, that alternative that I was speaking about at the beginning, which is not actually a very radical, really. 40 years ago, it would have been the political common sense. But I think the political elites have lost their common sense, and they are really too close, too integrated to the corporate powers. We need to start fighting that. We need to start raising a voice that there is another way.
Okay, thank you, Mike.